right, the title of our message is Snip Snip, Poke Poke, Delilah's Barber and Optometry School.
Nice.
That's what she wants to do to you when she gets you in the chair. Snip Snip, Poke Poke. Getting rid of your hair, getting rid of your eyes. Our text is Judges chapter 16. Judges chapter 16. This is not really a sermon. This is an introduction to a sermon. We'll preach the sermon tonight. Judges chapter 16. Then went Samson to Gaza, and saw there an harlot, and went in unto her. Not a good move. Verse 2. And it was told the Gazites, saying, Samson is come hither. And they compassed him in, and laid wait for him all night in the gate of the city, and were quiet all the night, saying, in the morning, when it is day, we shall kill him. Nice guys. They were working hard. They said, we're going to be quiet. That's not something that was natural for them. Verse 3. And Samson lay till midnight, and rose at midnight, and took the doors of the gate of the city, and the two posts, and went away with them. Bar and all. So they didn't have a bar in town anymore. And put them upon his shoulders, and carried them up to the top of an hill, that is before Hebron. Okay, now that was quite an ordeal he did, and that's a mighty evidence of God's power on him. However, don't think one mighty act makes a sanctified saint. Remember, he's doing this because he's fleeing from the harlot's house, not because he's trying to preach the gospel. Now, he did do something that was miraculous. However, his life you don't want to pattern after. He was down at the harlot's house. Right. Delilah. Now let's see Delilah, verse 4. And it came to pass afterward. So he hadn't done any repenting. There's no turning in his life. It's just the next event. Verse 4. It came to pass after that he loved a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. Okay, Delilah is the only woman in his long list of unholy relationships that we get. So he really did love her. She was special. He didn't even worry about giving us the names of the other ones. But this one he names. Now, Samson did love her, but he was blind to the fact that she did not love him. It was one-sided from the very beginning. Verse 5. And the lords of the Philistines came up to her, and said unto her, entice him, and see wherein his great strength lieth, and by what means we may prevail against him, that we may bind him to afflict him. Now it's not just kill him, we want to hurt him first. And we will give thee, every one of us, 1,100 pieces of silver. Mm-hmm. They knew that Samson was much stronger than they were. But rather than try to enlist him as an ally, they say, no, we want to kill him and torture him. Torture and kill. I guess it doesn't do any good to kill him first, then torture him. They set a snare for him. And this is the way they do it. They do it through subtlety, not through strength. They're weak. They use trickery. Entice him. See if you can't fool him. Pull one over on him. Here it is, verse 6. And Delilah said to Samson, tell me, I pray thee. What's that word? Wherein thy great strength lieth, and what's that word? Wherewith thou mightest be bound to afflict thee. Those are two separate words used in two separate ways. They're important because this is the premise she's looking for. This is the questions she has. Just simply stated, we can understand from our story, a wicked companion cannot be trusted to keep your confidence. He shouldn't be telling her any secrets. She's not going to keep them to herself. Wicked crowds are wicked. Part of wickedness is revealing secrets. Don't tell wicked people secrets. You probably better be real careful telling righteous people secrets, because a righteous man can become wicked any time. So secrets need to stay secret or have none. Okay, the wherein and the wherewith are two different things. Wherein means where the power is from. Wherewith means how we can stop it. Okay? Samson charmed here by this smooth, soft voice. But the words were very clear. But the tone was enticing and deceptive. Tricked him. Sort of. Verse 7. And Samson said unto her, if they bind me with 7 green withs that were never dried, then shall I be weak, and be as another man. Okay, he didn't tell her the wherein. She asked that question, where's your strength from? Wherein is thy strength? And he didn't answer it. He just told her the wherewith you can bind me, but not the wherein. Lost opportunity. She asked him, tell me where you got that strength. And he wouldn't say a word. He should have suddenly said, oh, this is God telling me it's time to preach. I serve God and this is God's power and it has nothing to do with me and you. But no, It's just, oh, let me play with you a little bit. Get some of those green vines out there and wrap them around me, see what happens. Now, it says, he said to her, they bind me? Where did that come from? Delilah said, me and tell me and I pray thee. It was all about Delilah. She didn't mention a they. Samson knows what's going on. He's not a fool in this story. He knows it. Samson's now playing her game with full knowledge of it, but with no wisdom. Some things you don't fool with. A man walks into a Walmart checkout, walks up to the clerk and asks her, is this bug spray good for wasp? And the teller says, no, it kills them. Well, she had answered the question. The actual question. She did not answer the intended question. His intended question was, is this good to kill bugs with? Well, Delilah had asked a question, and Samson answered the intended question. The intended question is, how can we, the lords of the Philistines who've been after you all your life, bind you? Now he's trying to play with them. He's weak. He's talked about being weak as another man. He realized something. I don't know if he knew it, but he did. Everybody around him was weak. And the only thing that made him strong was he was different than everybody else around him. As a Christian, our strength is not in us, and it has nothing to do with anybody we're around. And I see so many trying to fit in with everybody around them. They're weak. Why do you want to be like them? Be different. Be who God makes you. That'll be something totally different. All men of this world in their natural state are wimps. Weaklings. I don't care how much you can bench press, you're a wimp compared to somebody God makes powerful. Right. Power is not in the pursuit of pleasure, but in the discipline of discharging duty. Compare those two. You have a duty to do? Do that. It takes more power and strength to do that, what you're supposed to do, than it does to go pursue your own happiness. But people think, oh man, he got the $1 million mansion and the boat and the car and all the toys. You know, he's built his life the way he wanted it. That's a great... No, it didn't. He was pursuing pleasure. How hard is that to do? I mean, come on. Don't we all naturally do that? It's much harder to just do the things you're supposed to do. That's hard. Wake up in the morning, get out of bed. That ain't easy. Put the trash on the street 2 times a week, The duties, don't shirk them. Power's not in wielding control, but in the strength of submission. You think about those two. If you're powerful, you can demand control. Right. However, real power is not in that. Real power is in submitting when you don't have to. As Christians, that's our job. Submit to God all the time. Now, we don't have to. That's a choice you make. We could say, no, I'm controlling this boat. Go ahead, wreck it if you want. But it's better to be in submission. Power's not in excess, but in the valor of restraint. You know, it's real easy to be excessive in everything. That's America. America is just the nation of excess. You know, you can tell it when you go out to eat. It doesn't matter what you order. It's going to be more than you can eat. Excess. And I understand they kind of have to do it because the restaurant down the road is giving a bigger plate and the next one's got to give a bigger plate and they all got to compete. But you can't eat all that junk, and you probably shouldn't. Excess. America's full of it. Okay? It's much better to have restraint. Leave a little on the plate. I don't care how many children are starving in Africa. You don't need it. Don't eat it. Restraint. Verse 8. Then the lords of the Philistines brought up to her 7 green withs, which had not been dried, and she bound him with them. Well, it turns out the we were less involved than the she. The they just handed her the product, and she did all the work. Now, that tells you something. You might run with the wicked crowd and think you're popular with them just as she did. And she thought she was going to make some money off of them. She may have thought she was using them. But it turns out they forced her hand to be very heavy in this product. They made her do the binding. So will the world with us. Don't get involved with them. Verse 9. Now there were men lying in wait, abiding with her in the chamber. And she said unto him, The Philistines be upon thee, Samson, like I really care. And he brake the withs, as a thread of tow is broken when it toucheth the fire. So his strength was not known. Wait a minute, it was not known. I think it was just shown. But it was not known where it was, where it came from, because he never told anybody. Now he used it, but our verse says the strength was not known. That was from God, and he's still hiding it under a bushel. He's not telling anybody about it. He's going to use it. You know, God blesses Christians. And a lot of Christians try to use God without revealing him. Sure. You go to church. Now the big thing in churches is this, and preachers push it, is you can't outgive God. If you'll give to the church, God will give you more. So it's just natural to think that's, you know, that's a money market account or something. I give him, you know, I need more money this next week, so I'm going to give a little extra at the church. And now he's got to give me something. Not necessarily. Okay, that's trying to use God. You can't use God. A lot of Christians do it this way. I'll be super good this week, and then God will bless me with something. I know I've got a big heavy bill coming up at the end of the month, so right now I'm going to be real good. I'm going to read my Bible more than I ever have. I'm going to pray longer than I ever have. I'm going to talk to 3 people, you know, about God, and then he's got to bless me. Okay, you're trying to use him. That's not from the heart. That's Samson trying to use the strength, but not reveal anything about God. Verse 10, And Delilah said unto Samson, Behold, thou hast mocked me and told me lies. Tell me, I pray thee, wherewith thou mightest be bound. That poor woman. She'd been done wrong. Well, no duh. She'd been doing him wrong. This is true. She told the truth. Samson did lie to her. He's a liar. But hey, a companion of fools is going to be destroyed and they're both going down. How can 2 walk together except they be agreed? Okay. They're both liars. They're good for each other. She's no longer interested in the where. Now it's suddenly, how can I stop your power? She dropped that question about where does the power come from. Okay, she's not getting that one. She's already seen in music. He's not going to tell us about that. But the most important thing is just stopping it. Okay, so she's going to keep trying. And it says, wherewith thou mayest be bound. Guess what? It had already happened. He was already bound. He should have got out of there the first moment he found out somebody was after binding him. Somebody starts talking about putting you in shackles. Wouldn't that be a big clue? I need a new crowd. Well, he didn't. You don't play with sin. Sin's job is to bind you. And it will. Now, the fourfold cord of sin had already coiled around Samson, and he couldn't see it. He was blind before his eyes were put out. Verse 11. And he said unto her, if they bind me fast with new ropes that never were occupied. I'm going to spin a new tale here. Verse 13, end of the verse. If thou weavest the 7 locks of my head with the web. Get the spider Charlotte's web out here and let's... I mean, he's coming up with as many tales as he can tell. Verse 16. And it came to pass when she pressed him daily with her words and urged him, so that his soul was vexed unto death. Just shut up, woman. She keeps bugging him to death. Uh-huh.
I'm just saying, she told me once, then she told me, how stupid can this man be?
I know it.
This woman wants to kill me.
He thinks he's so strong, nobody can defeat him. He's been mightily used of God, even though he's a wicked sinner. And so he thinks, God values me so much, I can get away with anything I want. Tough. Verse 17. That he told her all his heart, and said unto her, there hath not come a razor upon mine head, for I have been a Nazarite unto God from my mother's womb. If I be shaven, then my strength will go from me, and I shall become weak and be like any other man. Ooh, he just told off on himself. The thing he's been trying to hold back finally comes out. She bugged him to death, and he just said, okay, I'll tell you the truth. Let's just get this thing over with, woman. Will you shut up finally? No, she's going to use it. Verse 20. And she said, let's do it one more time. The Philistines be upon thee, Samson. And he woke out of his sleep and said, I will go out as other times before and shake myself. And he wist not that the Lord was departed from him. He's been departing from the Lord for a long time, but now God says, I'm gone. That's bad news. The first cord that Samson chose was 7 withes, that is vines, green vines. The next lasso he layers was the new ropes. Next, all these cords become braids for his 7 locks of his head. And like a padlock, his doom is secured by a daily diet of Delilah's discourse. She's just bugging him to death every day. Till finally he just signs his own death warrant. Bad news. Verse 21. But the Philistines, there's that they, took him and put out his eyes and brought him down to Gaza, the place our chapter started, and bound him with fetters of brass, and he did grind in the prison house. Now Samson's been writing checks on the account of God's long suffering and mercy, until finally he ran out of checks. You know what happens if you get to the end of your checkbook? There's a friendly little reminder there, you need to order more checks. But not for Samson. Instead, he gets this reminder. He wist not that the Lord had departed from him. Your account's been closed. For all of Samson's strength, there was some things he could not do. He could not pursue the pleasure of sin and retain the power of God. You pick one or the other. He could not reclaim the wasted opportunities of his past. He had many opportunities he could have mentioned the Lord, and he did not. He could not arrest the penalty to be paid for forsaking God's law. There's a price to be paid for sin. It has a wage. Now, he couldn't forsake or avoid any of those, and neither can we. Psalm chapter 50. Psalm chapter 50, verse 21. Psalm 50, verse 21. God speaking. These things hast thou done, and I kept silent. Thou thoughtest that I was altogether such an one as thyself. But I will reprove thee, and set them in order before thine eyes. Now consider this, ye that forget God, lest I tear you in pieces, and there be none to deliver. Now this is the intro. Our message tonight will be on God's view of you. How does God view you? It doesn't matter how you view God. You're a nobody. But how does God view you? What does God think about your relationship with him? Not what do you think about it. That doesn't matter. Because we don't think right. He said in verse 21, I was just keeping silent because you thought I was just like you. And that's natural for man. Because we think with this brain. We don't have a God-sized brain in our little noggin. It's in this book right here, though. And we'll find out what God thinks of us and the things he intends for us. All right, that'll be tonight. So that's our intro.